All right. Take three, because my first take was far too mean. Like, that was way too mean. And my second take was condescending, which somehow came across worse. So, I just finished The Kind Worth Saving. This is by Peter Swanson. It is the sequel to The Kind Worth Killing. The Kind Worth Killing, for those who don't know, and never watched a single one of my book reviews because I'm pretty sure I tried to squeeze it in any recommendation video that I could, The Kind Worth Killing is my all-time favorite thriller book. I refer to it as my twisty twist twist book. I had no sweet clue where the plot was going. There are multiple plot twists. You are hooked from the beginning. It has my favorite psychopaths in all of literature. This book is near flawless in my very subjective opinion. I reread it a week ago in preparation for this book's release because The Kind Worth Killing I read, I think it was like 2019. It was one of my first thriller books. It's what got me back into reading after a long absence when I was in undergrad and into grad school. And I hold so much nostalgia and love for this book. I was convinced it could not hold up to what I remembered, like what I felt in my heart and soul and memory. I didn't think it was going to hold up, but it did. It so did. I love these characters. I love this plot. I love how it was crafted. I love everything. 99.9% of The Kind Worth Killing. Almost perfect 5 stars. Please read it. I love it so very much. So, The Kind Worth Killing ends in such a way that there is no need for a sequel whatsoever. The ending is perfect. I love the ending. And then a sequel was announced. And I was still mildly optimistic because there are some areas where it can be either expanded on. We can see where these characters are at now and how they're dealing with the choices and consequences of The Kind Worth Killing, or we could do a prequel. I don't mind prequels. I generally enjoy prequels. But this book chose to do neither. And I'll be nice and not condescending. So, this book does not need to be a sequel to The Kind Worth Killing. Peter Swanson chose to tie this to his, I assume, most popular work, and that's on him. I cannot be held responsible for comparing the two and saying that there was no need for this, because this book could have been original characters. There is no need for them to be the same characters from The Kind Worth Killing because they're in a completely different situation, and you have to retcon the ending, essentially, of the last book to make this one work. We're going to get into that when I get into spoilers, and I'm going to lower my voice and not get angry. This book follows the police detective from the previous book who, vague spoilers for The Kind Worth Killing, because I need to say where they ended up a little bit. He is now a private investigator after having to leave the police department due to the events that happened. And he is now taking a case of one of his former high school students of back when he was actually an English teacher before he became a police detective. There is absolutely no reason that this book couldn't have been a standalone story. No reason whatsoever. So he's taken a case where his former high school student thinks her soon-to-be ex-husband is cheating on her with a coworker, the real estate agent, and he's just going to investigate, try to get proof, give her confirmation that this has actually happened before she confronts him. Stuff happens, murder ensues, and we go from there. And we are also introducing the surviving member of The Kind Worth Killing into the plot and story. And that is my main grudge about this entire book and series, because you have to retcon the ending of the first book in order to make this work. Because said character in the first book, it is made very, very clear that they are on the way to jail. They have beaten everybody, they've outsmarted everyone, and one little loose thread that they have no control over is about to uncover all the proof of everything that they've hidden the next day. Like, I think it says, like, the next day, such and such is going to this location to do X, Y, or Z, and the character knows, oh crap, I'm going to be uncovered, everything is blown, and that is how the book ends. And now I had figured that meant that this character would have been in jail during the events of this book. No. The event that was about to get her caught has been retconned, in my opinion. You can argue, no, it's not, but yes, in my opinion, yes, it has. I must go into spoilers before going into further. So, ending the spoiler free, this book had the stupidest characters I have ever read from in my life. I hated the dialogue. It was cringy as hell. So many plot conveniences were in this book that my head was spinning. This book raised my blood pressure. And on top of that, it was just boring. It was just so boring. From the book that was my Twisty Twist Twist book, that I could not, for the life of me, see a single plot beat coming, to the most standard by the book story that I can't even call a thriller because there was one, you could argue two, plot twist, and honestly, I'd argue zero because one of them was so poorly handled that I'm like, okay. And the other one was just like, all right. I can't even in good conscience call either one of them a plot twist. Yeah, that's me being nice. That's me being nice. Positive aspects about this book. All I have is the writing. It is well written in the sense that it is structured, each grammatic sentence well. That is not a grammatically correct sentence. And to make it easy to read and read quickly. That's all I got. That is all I got for positives. Going into spoilers. So, we are going to talk. And I may or may not be nice. I don't know. So, the end of the first book, you have Lily. She is a serial killer essentially throughout the book, and she has 2 bodies in a well just off her family's lot. The first book ends with the construction workers about to dig that area up. So, she should be in jail because the 2 bodies that she has hidden are about to be found, and it's going to be very obvious to connect her to them. So, she has also stabbed said police officer, and he survived said stabbing. So, he was kind of like, pressing charges, but she was able to convince everybody because he was stalking her and doing this off time and was writing these creepy sexual limericks about her. So she was able to say she was fearing for her life. He got fired from the police department. There was no evidence that she was actually the serial killer and involved in these missing persons events. So she got off with it until the bodies were about to be discovered. Now, the detective is in love with her for some reason, which he was obsessively in love with her in the first book, and hence creepy limericks and why he was stalking her. But he has unexplainably forgiven her for stabbing him, getting him, essentially being responsible for getting him fired, even though it was his own fault, and goes to visit her in the hospital, because apparently construction must have been delayed when it should have happened the next day that they were going to dig up that well. And he goes to her, they chat for 3 days, and on the 3rd day, she's just like, oh, by the way, I have secrets in a well that's about to be uncovered, and then I'm going to be going to jail. So she has given him all the ammunition that he needs to put her behind bars. You know what he was trying to do in the last book before she stabbed him? But instead, what he chooses to do is to go to said construction site, because they've started construction, but they haven't really got to the well yet. And he uncovers the well because it's kind of hidden. It's flat, it's to the ground, and he just buries it all in. He doesn't look inside. He doesn't see the 2 bodies. He's just like, I'm just going to pack it in so when they start digging in construction, it's already filled in and she won't get caught. So now she's released from hospital. I'm not really sure why she was in the hospital. Maybe it was a psych ward because she stabbed a cop. I don't know. But, so she's just out, and they are now friends. Make sense of that? I can't. So he is just obsessively still kind of one-sided in love with her, and he's fine with that. Now he's gone on to his private detective job. Student comes, and she's like, husband's cheating on me. Get evidence for me. Cool. Goes off. Sleeps with the woman that husband is also sleeping with. And she says, I'm kind of involved in a threesome, and it's really bad, and I want to break up with it. So then goes to house, and, murder suicide from the husband and the other woman. Okay, cool. It is very obvious that the wife is involved, because we're also getting flashbacks for when she and a high school friend were on a summer beach trip together with separate families, like they just met up there as well. when they were 14, and they planned to kill his cousin because he creepy pervert sexual assault allegations, was going to be a rapist in the future. So they kill him. And at first, I'm thinking, okay, so we're going to stay in their past when they were 14, and it'll be some kind of twist there. It can't be just a straightforward, let's just work together to kill the cousin. Except it was extremely straightforward, and it was really, this is a personal preference. I hate teenagers characters in books. Their dialogue, I always feel, it just feels cringy, but that I'm not holding against because that's a personal preference. Just young characters, they talk very dramatically, very emotional, and I'm going to talk how emotional I'm going to get during this recap. So that annoyed me that we were dealing with this young of character. But that's on me. That's not this book's fault. So, later on, we get clips of a poem that the older sister of, I should start calling these people by name, Joan, who is the high school student and the one responsible for teaming up with this other guy, Richard, to kill their cousin. So we got Joan and we have Richard. And then Joan's older sister in the future writes a poem and calls her sister a murderer. So clearly, I'm thinking that we're going to get in these flashbacks something that she's seen or heard or done something to witness this murder. No, nothing. Not a thing. Never seen it. Didn't happen. She has no clue. That line in the poem that will come into play later, don't know why she said it. I guess because she went off with the guy when he drowned, and he's like, you know what, murder rhymes in the poem. It works well. I'm just going to roll with it. Moving on. So they have now killed somebody. They go to the same high school, but they're not going to interact. They're going to be friends in secret and never communicate ever again. Except now they're communicating because Joan wants Richard to help her kill her soon-to-be her ex-best friend. What is the reason for wanting the ex-best friend killed? She's talking mean behind her back. I kid you not, that is all the explanation you get. She says to someone else that Joan didn't have her period yet, and so just talking behind her back. So she needs to be killed for that. So she convinces Richard to talk to this other guy who is a loner. I think the book describes him as the kind of person you cast as a stereotypical school shooter. And then they convince him to murder the best friend. How do they convince him to do this? It must be some elaborate ploy to work on his psyche to get this to work, right? No, not at all. Richard goes to him and says, hey, you know what would be a good idea or be really awesome for us to do? We each pick somebody in the school to shoot and kill, and then we kill ourselves. It'll be awesome. We'll coordinate to be the exact same time, and we'll be legends. And the guys just immediately, yes, let's do that. So Richard picks the ex-best friend. The shooter picks someone for him to kill. Richard obviously isn't going to kill anybody. And the plan plays out absolutely perfectly. No issues whatsoever. He kills the ex-best friend and himself, and that's it. Richard and Joan have gotten away with it again. I got nothing to like, motivation is not a thing in this book. There's a little bit in the terms with Joan being wanting attention because her older sister had childhood leukemia and got all the attention, and Joan has learned that she only really gets attention when she's the center of a trauma. But it's not explored enough for me to really say it made her a good character, but she's the one that has the most attempt at a character. So now we're back in the present, and the private investigator, who was also the teacher for that said shooting, is trying to figure out what kind of event happened that led to this double suicide, because he also feels responsible that the girl he was sleeping with just got murdered. He turns his attention at Jones, like, awful coincidence that you got me onto this. Let me just look into some things. He finds this poem. He doesn't find this poem online. He orders the books of the older sister, and when they arrive, he's looking through them, finds a title that says, like, the name of the beach 2000, and then the line that is completely coincidentally calls her a murderer. keeping in mind the older sister does not know that she is a murderer. And he's like, types in name of the beach 2000. Nothing going on. Types in the name of the beach drowning and finds the cousin who was killed. But the date doesn't match, so he's just like, older sister probably just changed the date to make, because 1999 sounds better in a home title than 2000. And then he's like, oh, hey, this is the one who was killed was the cousin of one of my high school students. It doesn't say the name of the girl who was with him, but based on the fact that I found this from the older sister's poem, it's likely her. So that leap in logic was made to connect that event. And then he's just like, I wonder, did they know each other and the school shooter? How are they related? And then leaps in logic puts the 2 and 2 together to get them, to make him convinced that Joan is involved and Richard is the other one. Oh, I forgot to mention the only little bit of a twist in this book. She is married to a Richard in this book, and Richard is the one who was killed. So we're left to assume that it's the Richard from the beach that she killed someone with. Turns out it's a different Richard. I barely consider this a twist because, frankly, it was not shocking reveal that Richard was actually still alive and was just a different Richard that was killed. I feel if you can debunk the twist by seeing it, like if this was a movie, unless you cast 2 actors who looked near identical, it's not a twist. If I could see the person, you can tell it's not the same person. Anywho, regardless, what stupid thing happens next? He goes to Richard, tracks him down through totally legal means, and Richard finds out that he is onto them. So, God, this man has been planning to like blow up a convention center to kill a bunch of high school graduates. That's the type of character we're dealing with. He also sometimes monologues to himself, believing he's being watched by aliens in a zoo. I swear to God, if Peter Swanson made any more obvious of a Slaughterhouse-5 reference, I was going to lose my mind. Then what happens is he takes a bomb to the detective's house, intending to kill him, but the detective sees the backpack, throws it out of his office, closes the door, bomb goes off, and Richard is killed. Detective is fine. Well, not fine. He's in the hospital. And that's when we also find out a little bit before that he's actually been still connected with Lily, the serial killer from the first book, who he, again, obsessive in love with. So she comes to help prove Joan is actually in charge. Not prove it. She's here to kill Joan because Richard's already dead randomly. He was a pointless character, apparently. Oh, do I need to ramp it this? I'm going to ramp it because pointless. We also meet Richard's girlfriend for like 2 pages, just long enough for her to reveal to be like someone who cut herself regularly, has no self-worth, no self-confidence. Like she goes to him like, hey, why'd you break up with me after our 4 dates when I slept with you on the 3rd date? What did I do? What's wrong with me? And him being like, no, it's fine. The point of her character was for Richard to admit he was still in love, that he was actually in love with Joan. And it just rubbed me the wrong way. It was really annoying, but mostly it was just because you also get like Joan sleeping with some guy like a week after her husband's murder, if it was even a week, and I'm like, okay, are either of these characters going to come back into play at all? Like anything, like a twist or reveal that they're involved to make it all twisty like the first book? No, nothing. Not a bit. Not relevant characters at all. So Lily's here. More shenanigans happen. This is near the end of the book. And she meets up with Joan. It's stupid. And then... oh yeah, she tells Joan to call the hospital and put in a bomb threat so it'll make it easier for Lily to go kill the detective, because that's how she's got into Joan to convince her that she's on her side. I don't know why she had her do that. Maybe to get her out of the house, because then she breaks into the house and she kills her in such a way to make it look like a brain hemorrhage. This pisses me off. They take piano wire, go in through the eye, got a little hook on the end, and she's like rattled it around to damage the brain to make it look like a hemorrhage. So apparently you can just easily go in through the optic nerve like that. So like I'm pretty sure there's a medical procedure where you essentially go to the brain using this method. However, I'm pretty sure you either have ultrasound or some type of camera to do it. But no, the optic nerve must be very easy to find and get through. This book is so stupid. We don't have any of the consequences of the first book playing out. Like, we couldn't have had Lily in jail and being a consultant of some type of the mind of a psychopath. We couldn't have her busting at a prison. We couldn't have her, like, running a prison, because you know she'd be able to convince everyone that she was the one in charge. I just don't understand. Instead, we get bad limericks and characters whose plot does not make sense, or motives. There are no motives. No one has any motives for why people need to get killed. Oh, I didn't even mention the motive for killing the husband and the one he was cheating on her with, because he wasn't actually cheating on her, really, because she set him up. She went to the other woman's like, hey, I don't really want to sleep with my husband anymore, so why don't you sleep with him? And then later, the other woman is just like, I'm tired of this, I kind of want out. So she plans a way to kill them both because the other woman wanted to leave. And I don't understand anybody's motives in this book. So that is what I got from this book. And yes, this was me being a lot nicer than I was in my first take. So I'll apologize for my Goodreads chapter page updates, because that was too mean. At one point, I compared Joan to Sasuke Uchiha in terms of plot convenience. That was a step too far. I think that's it. This was not a fun time. Read The Kind Worth Killing. It is fantastic. The sequel does not exist. I also really enjoyed two of his other books. What were they called? Her Every Fear and Before She Knew Him. I like both of those. That's all I got. I'm going to talk to you later. Bye.